Can you hear me? Welcome everyone. Good morning. Thank you for attending to our talk. Today we are going to talk about Cutter. I guess that most of you are familiar with Cutter, and if no, well, now it's a good time to do so. Cutter is the graphic user interface of Radar 2. It's the official one. And in this talk, we will show you some of its features. We will show you demos, and we will also share what we did in the last year since last r2con. I will also show you what we are planning to do next in our roadmap, and we also have a really big surprise for you today that we introduced in the release that we are releasing today, a new version of Cutter. But before we start, let us introduce ourselves. My name is Itay Cohen. Some of you may already know me by my nickname Megabits. I'm a reverse engineer and a malware researcher in Checkpoint Research. I'm a contributor to Radar 2 and maintainer of Cutter.
Hi, I'm Antide Petit, also known as Xarkis. I'm an IT student in a French engineering school called NCMAG, and I'm also part of the GRIHAC conference, which is a French international IT security conference held in Grenoble. And yeah, I'm part of the organization, and I'm here since the beginning of the project of Cutter.
So my name is Florian Märkl. I'm a computer science student at the Technological University of Munich. I also recently released Chiaki. Maybe some of you know it. It's an open source implementation of the PlayStation 4 Remote Play protocol. And this was basically reversed using Cutter as the primary tool. And I've been contributing to Cutter since basically the beginning when it was still Yaito.
Cool. So what is Cutter? Or more accurately, what Cutter is not? Well, Cutter is not a replacement for Radar 2. Cutter was designed and developed for people who, let's say, find Radar 2 maybe not that intuitive, or they are not so comfortable with the command line. And Cutter was designed for people who prefer GUI applications. There are people like this. I confess I prefer GUI applications. So it's basically a graphic user interface around Radar 2. And for those of you who don't know, this is how Cutter looks like. Basically a modern UI, widget-based with many features. So this is the Cutter we are talking about today. But without going too deep into details, Cutter is a cross-platform reverse engineering framework. It runs on Windows, on Mac, and on Linux. And whenever we implement a new feature, we're trying to make sure that the feature is compatible with these three operating systems. So basically, you can use Cutter on your favorite operating system. Cutter is written in C++ using the Qt framework. This is what allows us to have the modern UI you just saw. And Cutter is powered by Radar 2. That means that Cutter cannot operate without it. Basically, Cutter underline is executing Radar 2 commands and Radar 2 APIs. Yeah, it executes the commands you are familiar with from Radar 2. And although Cutter is a relatively new project, it already have a very big community. Thousands of reverse engineers using Cutter on a daily basis. And for those of you who prefer numbers, Cutter releases were downloaded more than 160,000 times. So 160,000 times, that's a lot, and that makes us very happy. And we hope that more and more people will start to use Cutter as it becomes a real alternative for other graphic user interfaces such as IDA or Binary Ninja. So every graphic user interface reverse engineering framework need to have some basic features, and this, I will show you some of the basic features, and you'll see next in the demo many more. So start with the graph view of Cutter. Basically lets you view the flow of a function in an interactive way. You can see that each node in the graph is basically a basic block in the function. You can rename functions using the graph view. You can add comments. You can jump between different functions and addresses. But even more basic than graph is the linear disassembly view. This view lets you see the disassembly of a program function after function. And And similarly to graph, you can jump around, navigate between functions and addresses. You can add comments, rename functions. You can apply structures. Yes, we have structures in supporting Cutter. You can apply types, change immediate based, etc. It's a very powerful and basic view that we have in Cutter. And other basic view that every decent binary analysis tool has is the xdump widget. Basically lets you view the binary, the x bytes of the binary. And one of the key features that we have in the xdump, which by the way we did a very big refactoring for it in the last year, is the side panel you see on the right. It responds to selected bytes that you are selecting on the xdump, and can give you information about the selected bytes, like the MD5 of them or the SHA-1. It can also give you the entropy of the selected bytes, which is great if you're working with compressed data or with packed binary. And another cool feature is that when you select bytes, you can easily export it to as a byte array or list of bytes to your favorite programming language, say it's C, Python, JavaScript, whatever. So if I write a Python script to do something, I can easily select bytes and copy them to the script. It's just one click. And last, although Cutter is implementing many features from r2, it does not implement all of them. And so, because there are so many. And if you want to execute r2 commands straight for Cutter, you can do it. It's very intuitive, it's very easy. So say you have you want to use r2 commands that are not supported yet in Cutter, it's a great option. Also, if you have some tasks that you can do faster from the command line, it's basically a command line for r2. So these are the basic widgets that we have, but we have a lot more. You will see some of the, in the demos coming soon. But let's quickly go through some of the things that we did in the last year in Cutter since last r2con. First of all, and maybe most important, we added a plugin support for Cutter. Now you can extend Cutter with Python or C++ plugins. We hope that you and the community will write more plugins for Cutter. It's quite intuitive. We hope that you will help us maybe port some of the popular plugins from Itay, Binary Ninja, or whatever to Cutter, and it will be awesome. Also, thanks to Vanellope, we added a graph overview. It's one of the most requested features for Cutter in the last year. This basically lets you view a complex graph in an easy way and navigate inside them. It's great for detecting crypto algorithms or stuff like this. As I said before, we did a big refactoring for the xdump widget, and now it's much faster and easier to use. We still have a lot of things to do that we want to implement, such as the WO commands of r2, so you can rotate bytes or do math and crypto operations on selected bytes. We also have a new theme editor that you can customize Cutter with it. It's very intuitive UI. To customize how Cutter looks like, how the disassembly looks like, and you can share the themes you created with the community, and please do so. Also, thanks to a lot of good people, Cutter interface is now translated to many languages, including Dutch, Russian, and more, and we hope that more people will help us to translate Cutter interface to more languages, and so we can reach more people. Like, for example, Chinese or Arabic would be great. And last one, in the last year we worked a lot on the stability of Cutter, and we want the users of Cutter to trust it to do what it claims it can do, and this is why we invested a lot of efforts in fixing bugs and making sure that everything is working fast. We actually prefer to introduce less features, but making sure they are stable instead of introducing a lot of features that some of them may be useless or maybe on a POC level and not baked yet, fully baked yet. So this is what some of what we did in the last year, and now it's demo time.
Nice. No, thanks. And can you zoom this? Can you make it bigger?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, cool. All right, so I will show you a bit the ideology of Qatar and how you can start with it. So, for example, we have, well, let me reset the. So this is the greeting page of Qatar. It didn't change much since previous releases, but basically here you will find all the important information about your file. So, for example, if you have no idea what kind of file this is, this page will tell you the architecture of the file formats, and many useful information. On the left, you can find the functions list. So, sorry, wrong page. So this is where you can find all the functions of your binary, and basically you can just double-click on them to just change the seek to it, the seek which is current location. So basically, the ideology behind Qatar is that anything that is possible should be accessible with the mouse. So for example, if you're interested in something or looking for something, you can just click the Windows menu on the top of the window and go, and well, everything you might that is implemented in Qatar can be found in this specific menu. So if you're, for example, interested into strings, well, you can just click on it on this menu, and you will have a new widget which will pop up and show you all the interesting strings in the binary. Another important menu is the Preferences menu, which will show you many customization options that are available in r2. And if you don't know them, well, at least we try to display as much as possible. So there are many of them, and you can try to play with it, see how it reacts with the interface. We also have now a cool theme editor. So basically, you can just create a new theme. Let's say my awesome, it's not the good, never mind, theme. And now you can edit the theme, and you can select the different options, and it will just highlight them in the preview. So for example, if I want to change the color of the call, you can just change it, and it reacts correctly. No. Yeah, sorry, the resolution is a bit slow. Is a bit low. All right. Now, as I said, everything that should be usable with the mouse. So if you want to interact with an instruction inside the disassembly window, you can just right-click. And here in this menu, you will have all the possibilities you can do with this instruction. So for example, I don't know, if I want to rename this variable here, I can just right-click on it and type retype function local variables, and I can give it a fancy name, and then it will just update everything. And this also works like everywhere in every widget. So for example, if I'm in the string widget and I found an interesting string, for example this one, which is called success, then I can just right-click on it and see what's available there. So for example, I can show it in a new hex dump, and it will pop a new hex dump window, which will show you the string right here. As well, I can just right-click on it and just show the cross-references to this string, so I can know where it's actually used in the binary. And then I can just double-click on it, and it will update my current position in the binary. You can also press space to have the graph view. Oh, well. Yeah, it's... So here, I can check where the string is actually used, and it's used right after a function, which is this one. Now I can double-click on it, like in Itay you would do, and I can see that it's doing a string copy, and then it will execute some r213. So another cool feature we have in Qatar and we can use here is emulation. So you can start the emulation here, and everything is broken. Well, let me just close this. All right, here we go. So I'm starting the emulation here. All right. And so you can see on the top right, it's my stack view, and on the bottom right is my registers value. So now I can just step over the function, and right before the call, I can see what arguments are given to this function. And if I just step over the function, I can see even the result of the function, which is the r213 string that was passed to this function. A limitation of this, obviously, is that it doesn't emulate libraries, so you cannot emulate the string copy Cool. But yeah, that wraps it up, I guess. We'll see more demonstration later, but now I'm going to let Florian show you some fancy stuff he did. Oh.
All right, so now it's time for the surprise. Moment. There we go. Okay, so you might have heard of this little program called Ghidra, which has been recently released by the NSA. If you don't know, it's a reverse engineering framework which does a lot of similar things to R2. So if you compare the two tools, well, it has a user interface like we do. It's a bit awkward in my opinion, but well, that's a matter of taste. But overall, it does a lot of the same things that R2 can do. So I'm pretty sure you can find things that are better in R2 and things that are better in Ghidra. But there is one feature that we're going to concentrate on today that R2 doesn't yet have, like this. And this is what you can see here. It's the decompiler. So as you can already see from this small example, it can produce some pretty nice results. Now, Ghidra itself is written in Java. But if you take a look at the source code of Ghidra, then you can notice the decompiler part is completely separate of it, and it's entirely written in C++. And actually, this is how Ghidra uses the decompiler. So the C++ part is compiled into an executable. It's not used with JNI or some bindings. It's really just an executable. And Ghidra by itself starts this executable. Then it just uses some XML-based protocol on std out, std in to communicate with the executable. So it says just, okay, please decompile this function. And then the decompile executable does its stuff and returns the function in this protocol. And while it's working, it also queries some stuff like if it wants to know what is at a certain offset for the decompilation output, it just asks Ghidra and it returns that. So that's how this works. But actually, you can do even more with this decompiler. They even have a little command line interface built into it that you can't normally use if you just download Ghidra, but if you build it, you can make that work. And it kind of works like a mini R2. You can imagine that. You can just open a binary and then you can decompile it. And this works completely independent of the whole Java Ghidra. It has its own disassembler with Slay, so it can work completely independent. So because it's C++, C++ and C can be very nicely integrated together. So you probably already guessed that, but now we're going to introduce the r2ghidra decompiler. So, thank you. Okay, now I'm just going to, sorry? All right. So you can use the decompiler from R2 just as well, but I'm going to do a little demo in Kata right here. Let's see. This is the one. Okay. So this is a little binary I've prepared. Let's see here. Here's the main function. So now in Kata you have this pseudocode widget, which we already have for some time. And now you can also select Ghidra from down here. You have r2dec and you also have Ghidra. So there you can see the decompilation. When I just change the function, it automatically changes the decompiled function here as well. So let's take a look at this binary. Now you can see there's a function called arrow pause, and it's passed these two parameters from main, which are of course argc and argv, and another one. So let's take a look at this. Okay. Now let's make yeah, that's fine. So this is the graph, and this is the decompiled code. This comes from Ghidra. You can see down here we have a jump table, and it even has resolved that into a nice switch case statement. And up here you have a lot of code. So this already looks pretty nice. What is also cool about this is that we don't just display the code, but it also knows the location of these statements inside the code. So if I wanted to see, okay, where is this malloc happening in the actual code, I can just click it, or like the string compare, and then we will just synchronize the seek between the regular disassembly and the decompiled code. And the same works the other way around, so I just click here and I see where this is done. Okay, so you can already use it like this, but if we take a look at this part of the code, for example, we have a lot of pointer dereferencing and stuff like that. So it's really hard to see what's going on, and the same thing is true. Well, it's a bit more readable here, but it's even there. It's still hard to really see what's going on there. So what we can do is, let's say we know that this argument here, arg8, is of the type of some struct, and we have to reverse this by just looking at other parts of the code. So let me just go into the types widget, and I can load some types here. Prepared those already. So I'm just going to load some structs in here. This is just a few structs and an enum. Load it in here. And then I can just take this variable. So let's say I know this is of pointer bright pointer. And let's call it right. And now look closely at the decompiled code, how this will change. So right now we have a lot of pointer casts and stuff like that. So if I play the struct, you can see it automatically resolves all the struct members with all the dereferences, and it all looks nice. And the same thing is possible. So here I have this ambassador is an enum, so it even resolves these. And you can see the same down here in the switch statement. Okay. So this makes this whole decompiler quite useful, because you can define a lot of the structs and resolve the entire code, so it makes it much more readable in the end. Okay. Now, as I've mentioned, we don't run any kind of Java Ghidra, so you don't need Ghidra at all to use this. This is all self-contained inside one single R2 plugin and the cutter part of it. Okay. So, you are probably wondering, when can you use this? The answer is right now. This is the GitHub repository. We've just published it this morning, so you can just pull the code there and build it. If you're using R2, you can also install it from RTPM, so just type this in and it will work. And we will also release Kata 1.9 just right now. We just have to push publish for that. And all our builds on Windows, Linux, and macOS also contain this decompiler, so you can just download it and use it as you have seen right now.
All right, thank you, Florian. So now, what's next in a Cutter world? So there are actually many things we want to do next. The first one that is very demanded by you users, people using Cutter, is the debugger. Yeah, indeed, we have started to work on this. Last year, we presented a Google Summer of Code, who implemented it in Cutter. Right now, it's still a work in progress because we still have issues to take care of. For example, if you try to debug some position-independent executables with Cutter, it might just not work. So for now, all of this project is in a separate branch that we will try to focus on in the next month. So hopefully you will be able to debug from Cutter. Another important thing is the projects. So right now, Cutter doesn't have any projects. So if you start a heavy reverse engineering session and you just want to take it later or share it with a friend, well, you cannot do it because there's no projects. No projects. So yeah, we also need to work on this. So you can just save it, load again, and everything. So yeah, to have a better user experience. You might know the R2 package manager, as we just mentioned earlier. We want to also integrate this so it would be able to load to download Cutter plugin as well, and show you all of this in a fancy clickable interface. Since Cutter is using the mouse, well, this should also use the mouse, I guess. Something else, in the past, we were using Jupyter to have a fancy Python console, so you could just script Cutter from Cutter. The problem with this approach was that we were using the Qt web engine, since Jupyter is something web-based. So we removed it for obvious reasons, because it's basically just bundling Chrome inside Cutter, and we don't really want to do this because it increases the binary size for nothing. So yeah, this is something we want to focus on as well, have a proper IPython console. And talking about this, we also want to improve our API, because many people start using Cutter to automate reverse engineering tasks in their daily job. And basically, we want to have something like a proper API, not just so you don't have to learn r2 commands to use the API, but actually just use something more understandable. And all of this can only come thanks to a proper documentation, and this is also what we want to focus on in the next month, to greatly improve the documentation for Cutter. And yeah, that's it. As you might have seen, or maybe not, we also have a new fancy website, thanks to Megabits here. So on this website, you can download Cutter for your platform, browse the source code, and find the documentation and community links. So take a look at it. And we would like to thank all our contributors who made this possible. So many of them are contributing to Cutter, regularly or not. And yeah, we want to give them a big, warm thank you for this. And if you want to be on this screenshot, on this slide next year, just come to us. We're nice and we're funny, I guess. So don't hesitate to contact us and contribute to Cutter. And yeah, I would also like to thank especially our development team and all those people in these slides who work on Cutter on a daily basis. So thanks to them. Now, as I said, if you're interested in the project, just don't hesitate to come to us, contact us on Telegram or anything. We're always looking for more people to join the team, because this is a huge amount of work to do. And yeah, just come to us. Now, if you have any question, we'd be glad to answer any of them. Thank you. Yeah, but does he have a microphone?
Are there any limitations to what you can do with the Ghidra plugin?
Limitations in what sense?
You might want to answer with the microphone.
What exactly do you mean by limitations, or what do you want to do?
like types and whatnot?
So, yeah, basically we can use everything that the decompiler offers. We need some ways to get this information over from r2 to the decompiler. So to implement this nicely, we also need to have these features in r2 before. So for example, in r2 we don't have, or at least as far as I know, we don't specify return types for functions. So that's something we don't have. But as soon as we have that, then it's just really trivial to give that to the decompiler. Yeah, but he's... I don't know one. I saw some, well, pretty trivial bugs in the decompiler code, and I got no response to my PRs so far, so I don't know, but no backdoor so far. Yeah, you still have a question?
It works.
Yeah. So, like, what I really meant was, are there anything that we can't do using Ghidra as a plugin that Ghidra itself can do?
No. Actually, so right now maybe yes, but it's if Ghidra can do something with the decompiler, then we can do it too. We have we have the whole source. Actually, the interface that Ghidra implements of the decompiler doesn't even cover 100% of the interface that the decompiler offers. So yeah, it looks like this was initially some separate project from Ghidra itself, and it was just added to Ghidra at some point. Yeah. Any other questions?
I have another question. Can you show how to use the Ghidra decompiler from r2?
Yeah, sure.
And also show a little bit the code and how to install it with r2pm and so on?
Let's see.
Thanks.
Oops. Yeah, I think that's okay. Okay. With the binary. So in R2, if you have it installed, you can just use the pdg command, and from there you have access to the decompiler. So let's say we go to this main function, analyze. You need analysis for this to work, and then you can just call pdg and it will decompile. The first one takes a little while, but after that it's really fast. So that's how it works in R2. To install it, you just need set r2pm. You just type in r2pm -i r2 ghidra deck, and then it will fetch and build the plugin. So that's all you need. As said, you don't need Ghidra. You just use this, and it builds everything self-contained. Any other questions? Yes?
Something about the speed in comparison with the previous plugin from Antide, the one that you were having Ghidra background.
About the speed?
Yeah, the speed, like.
I didn't do any measurements, so I would imagine it to be pretty much the same.
Okay. And what about the stability?
Well, yeah, that's a good point. So because we run the decompiler is all inside this R2 plugin, it runs in the same process. So if the decompiler seg faults, then R2 just seg faults. That's unfortunately how it is. If you run it in Ghidra itself, if the decompile executable seg faults, then you will just the decompiler will die and you still have Ghidra. So that's a good point there. For now, I haven't found any major issues in the decompiler except from some uninitialized stuff where I was getting unpredictable output, but I was able to fix that. So yeah, looks good.
Just for information to everyone, I think I read yesterday night that it was also ported to IDA, so you can have IDA with the Ghidra decompiler.
Exactly. Yeah, I've seen that too. What they are doing is pretty similar to the plugin from Pancake, so they're just running headless Ghidra and then calling the decompiler, which is kind of, well...
So the Cutter one is way faster?
Not necessarily faster. Yeah, maybe a bit, because it doesn't have to do so many information transmitting, but the point is more that you can just much more deeply integrate this. We just don't have Ghidra in between. We just can feed all the information right to the decompiler in the way that it needs it, right from R2. So that makes it much more powerful with the types and so on.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
I can just yell.
Oh, the microphone's there, so. Oh yeah.
Much better. So with Cutter, we saw that you can implement a type and the decompiler, the pseudocode itself would change. Does the same apply for R2, or is there some extra symbol replacements that you have to do?
This is all just using the R2 functionality.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Hello. Do you plan on collaborating with the Ghidra developers on the decompiler, fixing bugs, adding features that would benefit Cutter and R2?
Well, maybe. So I personally don't plan to do huge contributions to the decompiler, but for example, there are some things where it does a variable plus equals minus or a negative value, which could be made much nicer, so small things like that. I think we might submit patches like that in the long run, but yeah, no huge plans for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Back here.
Do you plan to implement the mapping of decompiled lines to assembler?
Yeah, I've shown that. We already have that. One moment. What? I have no idea how to use that. Okay, where's there it is. Yeah, let's just use that. Okay. Yeah, so if let's use another function. There we go. So here you have it really knows what instruction corresponds to which thing here, and you even have, let's see here. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening here. Even inside one single line, here you have two comparisons in one decompiled line. Let's go a bit closer here. And you can see when I click here, it's something else than when I click here. So it even knows that this is a different offset. Here.
What discrepancies are there between the instruction sets that the Ghidra compiler supports and that R2 supports?
Well, so the Ghidra decompiler uses Slay for the... Let me just... let's go into Cutter again. Let's see here. And basically you can use anything that Slay supports and that R2 supports as well. And we just do some mapping between the currently loaded R2 plugin for the architecture and Ghidra one. And if you want to see what's supported right now by the decompiler, you can just type in pdgs, and this is the list that is bundled right now. But you can use basically anything that is supported by Slay. So this is the list. If there is some issue with the mapping, so for example you add your own architecture and we don't have the mapping yet, then you can, we have this r2ghidra.lang variable that you can set to anything, so you just type this or whatever. And then you can manually set this architecture. So it basically can support anything you want. Any other questions? Okay, then thank you very much.